See ya.
All right. Just like the dentist office.
Yep, we're gonna extract something.
You are. Toothy remarks.
Oh, put up.
I'm Gary Lloyd. I've been making surveillance sculpture for about 45 years. I was living in Venice, and that was where the scene was. That's where other artists were working and living. It was noisy, and people wanted to socialize and party. I wanted to work, so I moved downtown in 1968. I had just gotten out of Vietnam, and I was still finishing up at Otis, finishing my degree there. And I was just teaching part-time at Cal State L.A. So I needed to be where all the 5 freeways crossed, so I just pulled away from Venice. I moved downtown where there was better space and it was real cheap. Some of it wasn't earthquake, so it was even cheaper. I moved into buildings that you could die in, but you could afford to live in as an artist. First one was on Temple Street, and there's the Temple Street gang down there. There's Kyle Workman and Terry O'Shea and other people like that working down there at the time. I left 1018 Temple and I went downtown to 239 South Los Angeles Street. Well, I don't think people thought of it so much as a community except as a place where you could get cheap space and work. All the freeways come through this section, so if you're going to teach out in Orange County, the Valley, you can go teach and come back. Or if you had a job in the film industry, it's right there. Or if you want to work retroing buildings and doing repurposing carpentry and pulling wire, a lot of people are carpenters and electricians that are artists. They know how to build, so they're getting jobs around here doing all that work. So there was a lot of work for everybody because there are a lot of spaces being repurposed from industrial to studio space. I heard the Citizens Warehouse was a good place to be. That was Joel Bass, Mark Kreisel, and Judd Fine. The 3 of them had taken out a master lease, and they were doing the earthquake work. And they said, don't worry, the earthquake work's underway, we're on schedule. Looked at it, I liked it. So I signed the lease, I got in there, busted my ass, drywalled the place, started working. In about a month, I was making art again. I was putting a show together for the Museum of Modern Art in Poland. I was teaching also at UCLA and Otis in sculpture. I was running both departments. So I wasn't sleeping much. I used to have a bed that was under my ping pong table. I had my bed on car rollers, right? We all did. And we'd see the building and safety department come in. Hell, we'd roll our beds under there, pull the covers down, go to sleep while they looked around. They were just doing their job. They knew we were there. They didn't look too hard. We had people living in the basement of that building. We had a French family living down in the basement of that building. I don't know what they were making down there. Some fashion clothing in the dark basement of the Citizens Warehouse. In the middle of the Citizens Warehouse, there was this hole in the structural membrane of the building, 40 by 50 feet. They cut out the whole floor to make an interesting looking space. And they sacrificed the total integrity of the building. And they kept that from building the safety for years. It was astonishing. I don't think they ever knew by the time they got out from under their master lease, they weren't liable. There used to be a lot of rats in that area because there was a big slaughterhouse and they were dropping gooses on snack necks. And so that'd be 3 to 5 in the morning. Whatever was left over, the rats were waiting. Right around that time is when I met Andy Wilf. He was such a great painter and such a wonderful person. We both loved Chaim Sattoon's painting of the beef hanging. We both just idolized that painting, the way it cut off the rib and the way it was like a piece of painting he took off the floor and stuck back on the painting. He used to talk about how to build a painting like a sculpture with Andy.
I was incorporating wax at that time with acrylic, doing negative drawing with the other end of the brush, digging out areas like furrows in the paint.
Now, he was painting the meat markets down there, right across from the Central Market. He was looking out his window at all this meat. He was painting what he was looking at. Pretty incredible. I miss Andy. I miss Andy. I got interested in how people are valued about what they're worth. So I started cladding the human anatomy with money, currency from Japan and Mexico and the United States, and mixing these together on the sculptures and made them into pirate radio stations. So they'll have a microphone, a transmitter, they transmit on FM radio, and within 1,200 feet you can step on Rush Limbaugh. You can overcome the power of that station and override it with your signal, hence pirate radio against the law, breaking down that boundary, This is a life-size human skull, probably from India. There's a microphone in it. It's broadcasting 1,200 feet in both directions. And if you're in your car or you got a boom box, and you'll walk by and all of a sudden what's ever being said near that sculpture is real time. It's going out there. It's surveilling what you say. It's an FM radio transmitter. It transmits whatever sounds were going on. It used to be in the Party Boys studio, recording whatever they said, whatever went on in their loft. And right next to it, there was like a sweatshop. So it's the sound of a sweatshop that you hear. It's about 8 feet tall, so it looks like an axe. It's from the original meat axe work. I took a piece of beef and I built a big fireman's axe shape. And then I took it to my studio, put it on my concrete floor. I photographed it. I put it in a lead tub and I took it to UCLA and had it cobalt irradiated and freeze dried and stored there, and it's still there. It's too hot to handle. I mean, you can't put it in a gallery. It's too hot. I've been sanding drywall all afternoon and I was dry. So I walked over to Al's and had many beers and felt a lot better about that drywall we were doing up there. Then I got to know it, came and shot a little pool. There were other artists there. And it was real varied. You had people who worked, just had like straight jobs working in the garment district. A whole lot of artists working on their spaces, and people who were like plumbers who worked with the artists who were pulling wire. I mean, that's who I went there with. If you went into Al's, to the left there's a pool table and bars straight ahead. And just to the right of it, there's like a little smoking passageway, I guess it was, You just go out there and you maybe piss at the corner. Maybe you might smoke some reefer out there, snort a little coke and drink some more and just play. You might get laid back there. I did once. Eventually I did a wink wall. So you put luminescent paint up on a wall real thick, a lot of layers, like really thick. You got little particles of phosphorescent material there. And then you have people stand in front of it, or you throw some water up in front of it in the dark, hit the strobe, and you've got an impression of whatever is happening at that moment in time. You got a black silhouette. So you like taking an instant photograph that fades right away. So everyone can take a kind of primitive photograph. And the wall's activated, so we call it wink wall, like that. I think what influenced me most about being downtown is it being a busy day and night like New York. There's always something going down, something happening. And it may seem sleepy down here at night, but a lot of artists are working because they did their day job. But they're working till 1 until they drop, because they got home at 5 or 6 to do their work. So you'd see a lot of lights on at night. There was a scene down here. You could actually go talk to other people about work, what you were doing there, where you're going to try to show, or the troubles you had. I was influenced by what I saw when I would walk my dog. I'd walk all over downtown. I'd go down to the Grand Central Market and go in and get my food. And I saw meat, and I thought about Vietnam. I saw the film industry down here filming this place and having it all lit up so it was not real looking, like it was some other world. Kind of felt like living in Blade Runner sometimes when it would rain. Go down Broadway and Los Angeles Street and looking up at all those old movie theaters. Downtown is kind of weird sometimes, but I like it. It's eerie. I like it. It's kind of got a lot of tooth to it, It's got a texture, It's beautiful. In this area, I've seen it go from being scruffy to looks like the West Village in New York or something like that. There's nothing new about what we've done here. It's gone on for years and years throughout the world. It's a good bacterium. Artists are good bacteriums. They clean up shit. You can clean up all the oil spills with the right kind of algae. Artists are kind of like algae. Joel Wax was one of the people who really stepped in and started to make sense of it. Hey, why don't you listen to these artists? They're making all your buildings worth more. Why don't you get together and form an ordinance so they can live here? And that started in early '80, and it took till this time for it to find its roots and get gentrified. I left because of all that. I couldn't afford it anymore down here. I'm over by Redondo Beach where I got free air conditioning, some scuzzy-ass industrial section right down there. I'm getting it for 8 cents a foot, buddy. This particular district's already done. If your mother and father is wealthy, good for you. Have them come down here, invest in this district, and get a business going here. It's nothing wrong with it. It's just the animal. It's the way it works. You aren't going to change it, but you need to learn how to work through it, work with it. So move, get what's cheap, like I did.
God.